Breaking news. Welcome to today's headlines. Why Nigeria needs restructuring? Why Nigeria needs restructuring? To my dear listeners from wherever you're listening from, please stay tuned as I read today's news. Since the Southern and Northern Protectorates were amalgamated in 1914 by Lord Frederick Lugard of the then British colonial government and gained political independence from Britain on October 1, 1960. Nigeria as a political entity or social political structure has been under threat of disintegration, a threat which exists as a result of lack of understanding and harmony among the different ethnic nationalities that make up Nigeria as an independent and a sovereign state. These factors of lack of understanding, unity, peace, and harmony among these ethnic nationalities that constitute the Nigerian state may be attributed to differences or diversities. Diversity is evident in the culture, language, religion, and most importantly, the worldview of the various ethnic nationalities that make up the political structure called Nigeria. Nigeria as a country was a British colony idea and shared boundaries with French colonies. However, the manner in which the colonial boundaries were drawn compounded the problems of the colonies. The colonial boundaries did not take into account the ethnic, religious, cultural, and geographical lines. Consequently, some culturally, ethnically, and religiously homogeneous and contiguous communities were arbitrarily severed and forcefully kept in different colonial authorities. And because these communities had been interacting culturally, ethnically, religiously, and occupationally before the deluge of imperial occupation, and because the various colonial authorities did not seek integration of the severed communities but instead their separation, consequent upon the divergent interest of the respective colonial authorities. Seeds of discord, disharmony, and conflict were sown in these communities. New boundaries were created and scarce resources became competition object. It was not, therefore, surprising that after political independence, when Africans took over the reins of power, the various communities which were suffering under the weight of colonial abuse, consequent upon their exile, resulting from their forceful separation and excision from their kids and kin, rose up in gallant defense of their territorial integrity and sovereignty. They demanded to be reintegrated with their kids and kin, wherever they might be in the post-independent African countries. However, the demands and movement rather than help in resolving the conflict generated new conflict. It is our contention that rather than seek for integration with kids, the emphasis should be on peaceful coexistence. Needless to say, African countries with greater mix of these colonial anomalies impinging on the free operation and functioning of pre-Berlin Conference ethnic, religious, cultural, and spatial identities and sensibilities faced enormous, in fact, gargantuan development task, mediated and modulated by the homogeneity or heterogeneity of this critical determinant of sustainable development. Sustainable development entails not only economic development but equitable distribution of economic benefit, which as equitable provision of basic needs, remedy of social inequities and environmental damages. It can be achieved only in time of peace. Nigerian's creation was fundamentally flawed, with the British superimposing northern hegemony and dominance over southern Nigeria. Nigeria is an artificial creation. Indeed, the name Nigeria was given to her by a young British journalist, Miss Flora Louisa Shaw, who later married Lord Lugard on 8 January 1897. What is today known as Nigeria was ruled by the Royal Niger Company around 1886 to 1899. Following the revocation of its character, the Royal Niger Company sold its holdings in the territory, which later became Nigeria, to British for €865,000. This was the price for which Nigeria was purchased, about 735.2 million naira only by 1900. The Southern Nigeria Protectorate and Northern Nigeria Protectorate passed from the Royal Niger Company to Britain. By 1st January 1914, these two territories were amalgamated as the Colony and Protectorate of Southern and Northern Nigeria. The fusion of these two territories was done for political and commercial reasons, without any consideration on the preferences of the inhabitants of these territories. These people already had their set ways of life. The Benin and Oyo empires, Hausa city-states, Igbo city-states, Kanem Borno, Ile-Ife civilization, cradle of the Yoruba race. We already had great historical figures like Oba Ovonarawanem, Uhudba Isil of Benin Empire, King Nana of Itekiri, King Jajar of Okpobo, Queen Amina, Malidris Aluma, Queen Idia, etc. To my dear listeners, now we've come to the end of our today's news. Please do drop by at the